Hey, Rafael, how goes it?
I'm doing great, Yvonne. How about you? How's it going with you?
I'm doing amazing. I am in my hometown of Bandera, Texas, and it's cold, but the weather's kind of crazy. It's warm, and then it's cold, and then it's warm, and it's cold. So trying to
Wow.
adjust.
Yeah. It's warm here, but it's going to get cooler the next couple of days. Yeah.
So I have a question for you before we talk about who our guest is. What is the last sporting event you watched, whether in person or on the television?
Last night, Lisa and I watched the end of the USA versus Dominican Republic in that World Baseball tournament.
Oh,
It caught us on. I mean, it's so much fun to watch um, all of these international teams compete against each other. And most of them have a lot of American players that are playing in the major leagues right here, but that were born right in some other countries. And funny enough, Italy is in the middle of it all, which is an amazing. Who knew that in Italy they played
right?
American baseball? Yeah.
That's funny. Well, the last sporting event I watched, if you asked my husband, you'd get a very different answer. But the last sporting event that I watched was the Super Bowl. And the reason we're asking this question, dear listeners, you will discover it very soon because our guest today, the chairman of the Illinois Workers' Compensation Commission, Mr. Michael Brennan, has a very interesting passion that he's going to share with us at the end of the episode. So stay tuned, and it's a really fun conversation. We get to hear from Michael Brennan and his perspective as the chairman of the Illinois Workers' Comp Commission. Let's go talk to Michael, shall we, Ralph?
Let's do it.
Oh, hi, Michael.
Good afternoon.
And how are you today? How's the weather where you are today?
It's snowing very lightly right now. We had a great deal of snow last night. I think we got 2 or 3 inches. So it's back to winter, which is typical Chicago weather. We had 80 degrees or well in the 70s a week ago, and now we're back to the high 20s, low 30s.
My goodness.
It's mild, Rafael. It's very mild.
Very nice. So, and that's where Rafael, you were just there, really just there, right?
We did. We were able to spend some time together, both at the conference and and afterwards. So it's wonderful to be with you again and to spend some time with you again, Mr. Brennan.
Well, it was very enjoyable. Rafael was making a presentation to the Illinois Institute of Continuing Legal Education and the Commission. We've partnered with them for the last 2 years, and it's afforded our people an opportunity to get a little bit different perspective on the law and on the current trends in comp. So it works well for us as our arbitrators and commissioners and staff attorneys go through training twice a year in terms of new trends and so on in the law. So I'm very thankful for Rafael's presentation. It's one of those areas, Medicare set-asides and MSPs and so on are always difficult for us at the commission.
Well, you're playing music to his ears. I know that.
I'm so incredibly grateful. I really am. It's such an incredible honor every year when the commission and the CLE Institute asks. It really is. It's such an incredible honor. So I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
So, Michael, for those that might not know who you are the chairman of the Illinois Workers' Compensation Commission.
Correct.
And how long have you been in that role?
In this particular role, I found out last week, my LinkedIn blew up with people congratulating me on my 7th anniversary here at the commission as chairman. I've been with the commission since 2013. So I was appointed 2 administrations ago as a hearing commissioner, as a so-called public member. We have 3 members on each panel. And I was reappointed by the next administration as a commissioner. And then when Governor Pritzker came in, he appointed me as chairman. And I've been very blessed to be in this position since. So it's been a great run.
Very nice. So, Michael, explain how you entered the wonderful world of workers' compensation prior to being part of the commission.
Well, I will give you the briefest possible history. I started with the Illinois Attorney General doing sales tax collection work, which coming out of law school, tax was not high on my list, but it was a job. And I segued after 2 years into the criminal prosecution of Medicaid fraud in Illinois, which I enjoyed. But unfortunately, I got caught between two agencies. One agency controlled the budget, the other controlled my authority. I pledged allegiance to the Attorney General, and I didn't get a pay raise and I didn't get a promotion. It was time for me to leave. And short of leaving government, I was called in by the Deputy Attorney General, and he asked me to lateral in to workers' compensation. And I told him that I knew nothing about workers' compensation. And he said, it's easy. Same rules, new set of sharks. And that brought me into workers' compensation a long time ago.
That's an interesting way to put it. New set of sharks.
And I ran that division for the Attorney General for 6 years. And I went into private practice for well over 20 years. And then in 2013, I came back to the commission as a commissioner. So I've had a very interesting career. It's been very rewarding for me, both intellectually and personally. It's been a great career. So we'll see how much longer it lasts.
So tell us why you think it's been a great career. Tell us some things that you think are good to know, because as I think you might know, Rafael probably told you that one of the things that we hope to achieve by doing this podcast is that we hope that younger folks will listen and become more interested, because we all know, those of us folks that have been in the industry for a while know that we need to work hard at bringing in new, younger professionals as we are leaving. So what do you think it is that makes this career interesting?
Well, first of all, I think we're dealing with an area of the law that impacts people on not only a daily level, but a very personal level. And it's not just the individual worker, but it's also the employer. And the sad thing is that there's a constant misconception of what workers' compensation is and what the program is intended to do. For those of us that are in workers' comp and have studied it over the years, we know that the history of comp goes back to the 1870s for sure, and probably all the way back to Mesopotamia. But the reality is people are going to get hurt at work through no fault of their own. Employers are going to have employees that have injuries and have consequences from those injuries. And the system is intended to protect both the worker and the employer. And that's what I think is lost on many people. The protection to the employer is very real. As an attorney, I know that if you can prove up a negligence case on some of these particular injuries, you could bankrupt an employer. But I also know that injured worker, without these benefits guaranteed to him or her, would likewise be bankrupt. And I sat in an appropriation hearing last week, and I was asked some questions, and I related to this particular senator that my perspective was not only as chairman, but it was also as the grandson of an undocumented, permanently and totally disabled worker that got nothing back in the 1920s. And it impacted my father. It impacted me as I've gotten older and thought about it and came to the realization as to how important this area of the law is. We have to protect people. And that's what I think is lost many times, as some perceive that workers' compensation is a giveaway program or an entitlement. It's not. It's a right. And it's a right that has to be protected.
Right. So let's take that a little bit further. So as we often talk about this podcast, one of the things that's difficult for most people to understand, unless they've been in the industry for a while, is that, there are a lot of things that contribute to the complexity of our system. And one of those being that every state has its own set of rules and regulations, right, that govern workers' compensation. But the other thing that we've kind of discovered, particularly by talking to people, is that our industry doesn't do a great job of really kind of sharing what's happening with each different perspective, each stakeholder role perspective per se. And so that's one of the things we'd like to talk about, is to give a little glimpse of what each person's perspective is and how they work within the system, so that others might have a better understanding. So as we're talking to you today, could you shed a little light on that? Tell us what it's like. What does the Illinois Workers' Compensation Commission do, and what is their role in the greater workers' compensation system in Chicago and overall?
Unlike some states, we are not a fund state. We do not pay benefits from our commission. Some states, I'll take Ohio as an example, they literally pay the benefit through their fund, and all employers pay into that fund. Here in Illinois, there are well over 350 insurance companies that are writing workers' compensation insurance. And when a worker is injured, that insurer, and we'll just talk about them for a moment, that insurer is responsible for the payment of benefits. When there's a dispute between the worker and the employer slash insurer, they then come to the commission for resolution. So we're an adjudicatory body. We are not a payer. We do not regulate insurance at the commission. But unlike other states, we do regulate self-insurance at the commission. And we have over 500 employers that are self-insured in Illinois, and they account for over 500,000 employees in Illinois. Again, it's very different from state to state, but here in Illinois, that's our main role, is as an adjudicatory body.
Thank you for explaining that. Ralph, would you like to ask a few questions here?
Thanks, Yvonne. Chairman, so let's keep talking about that. So as an adjudicatory body, right, you've got injured workers, you've got employers, some self-insured, some that are insured. Oftentimes, you may also see third-party administrators who are handling the day-to-day components of those claims. Are
Absolutely.
those pretty much the general entities that come before the commission?
Absolutely. We also have people that have no insurance, and they're brought before the commission. But the reality is that far and away the majority of employers are insured or self-insured.
The laws, right, written by a House and a Senate and signed off by a governor that apply to the day-to-day components of what the commission, right, works in every single day. Does the commission have any ties to that process? Any input into that process at all?
I'll give you a great example. In the throes of the COVID time, we attempted to come up with a rule that would establish the right of a frontline worker to a presumption that if they contracted COVID in the performance of their duties, that it in turn would be presumed that it was the result of that activity. We withdrew the rule for several reasons, but business, labor, the governor, all got together and they produced a statute that created that particular protection for these frontline workers. That was a result of negotiation between business and labor, the trial lawyers, governor's office I know was involved. And we at the commission, when I say we, I'm talking about myself, our general counsel, deputy, and so on. We acted in an advisory role. We certainly did not dictate language or anything of that nature, but we answered questions as to what our Occupational Disease Act, which is separate from Workers' Compensation Act, but effectively it's all the same process. But we were asked how such a presumption would impact what we do, how we do it, and what the protection could be. And we did participate in that. And we have participated in other conversations regarding statutory changes over the last several years.
Love that, right? Because it would seem, as the adjudicatory body in Illinois, that you would have some awareness and knowledge of numbers, statistics, and both short-term and long-term effect of something of a process change in that capacity. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting for me because I was barely on the job for a year when COVID broke, and it created very significant changes here at the commission in terms of process. Our procedures or our rules remain the same in most ways, but much of our process changed during that time frame, and I think it's changed for the better. We're doing very well here. We're moving cases and so on.
Chairman, Yvonne and I did several webinars throughout that period of time and had multiple folks from the Illinois system because Illinois became a leader around the country in being one of the very first to start looking at that issue and seeing how employers and employees could be protected. So I remember having several webinars, Yvonne, where we had multiple members of the Illinois bar on both sides of the fence to talk about, because you guys were one of the very first to really address it and start thinking about the changes that were necessary.
Well, so I compliment the bar, and I do this in all sincerity. One of the things that I learned long ago was that consensus is a great way to build. When you're fighting, when you're throwing rocks at one another, you usually don't get too much done. And having been in the practice for the number of years that I was in that practice and developed the friendships that I have over the years, I've been very blessed with several friends in the practice. When it came time to adapt to what was going on in the world with COVID, I had at least monthly meetings with the bar where I'd have anywhere from 40 to 50 attorneys, either on a telephone call in the beginning or on a WebEx as we got into the WebEx system. And it helped us immensely. And misconceptions and difficulties that we might have had with some portion of the bar got smoothed over because we all came to consensus as to how we might proceed in the future. And that has been something that I've worked on since then. I try to be in touch with the bar on a regular basis. I appear at bar association meetings. I talk with the officers of those bar associations and so on. And it makes a big difference for us. But the same holds true with stakeholders. I've been very fortunate in that I have gotten to know a number of the stakeholders. And some of that is the result of our system. We have a workers' compensation advisory board that is appointed by the governor. And it's members of business and labor. It's members of the bar from the petitioner and the respondent or plaintiff and defense, depending upon where you're at. And those members also have been very helpful to us in terms of what's our next step, should we do something one way or another, and so on. And I invite them to comment. I invite them to pick up the phone and call me if there's a problem. So it makes a big difference. It helps.
That's awesome. That's awesome because that's exactly right how you get things resolved and you build a better system where everybody's heard and everybody can come to the table and speak about solutions and ideas of how to make it better. I just love that. What great leadership, what great establishment, foundation, right, to truly improving the system. Yvonne and I truly believe in and it's the reason why we have the podcast, to be able to talk to folks in every component of this little world of ours and really explore how to make it better and how to introduce it to the next generation of professionals in our system. At
a very young age in the business, I was in front of a judge who I knew, and it was an extremely difficult case, and there were 5 or 6 of us attorneys involved in the case, and I was at that point with the Attorney General. And he took a break and invited us all back into his chambers and took his robe off and hung it up and plopped in his chair. And he looked at us and he said, "I learned a long time ago that I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but if I listen to all of you, I'll learn something. So educate me, please." I have never forgotten that phrase, never forgotten it, because that's the reality of life.
Yeah.
And as my general counsel says, sometimes if you think you're the smartest guy in the room, maybe you're in the wrong room.
I love that.
Me too. That's very true.
But collaboration really makes a big difference in anything that we do. And as I say, we have been very collaborative here with the bar, with the stakeholders, and that includes business, labor, medicine, trial lawyers, defense lawyers. I mean, it runs the gambit. So we are fortunate in that way, in that they are willing to have those conversations with us, and they're willing to pick up the phone about something that might be problematic. I'm sure that in your experiences, you've had situations where people are afraid to call you because they might offend you. I'd rather you called before the problem got bigger.
Yeah.
And I have tried to voice that consistently. And the other part of it is we do have some great people here at the commission. I get to take a bow for their hard work.
It's so incredible, Mr. Chairman, because I've seen that with my own eyes at the multiple events that I've been out there in Chicago over the years. I've seen folks address you. I've seen folks pull you to the side and communicate with you. How about this? How about that? I've got a problem here. How do I deal with this? How do I deal with that?
Right.
I love that. I mean, how wonderful, young or old practitioner, plaintiff or defense, right? That you've got leadership like yourself that we're able to come and speak with and really ask, how do I solve this? How do I make this better? What an incredible process. What great leadership that you provide in that regard.
Well, as I say, I get to take a bow for other people's hard work, and I'm not going to lie about that. That's true. We have a lot of folks that are doing a great job, and it's in various capacities. It's not just our commissioners or arbitrators, who I think do a very great job, but it's also our administrative staff that run things on a day-to-day basis. They know their role, they know their authority, and again, they're very collaborative. We circle things around here for a reason. We try to make sure that we talk to one another, because what I might think is a great idea, somebody might cringe and say, "Oh my God, don't do that." And usually I react and say, "Okay, I'll slow down." Sometimes I don't, but it does make a big difference.
Well, I want to jump in and ask a couple of questions before we start to wrap up, which we'll need to do in a few minutes. But I was just recently at the WCRI conference in Boston, Chairman, and I want to ask you a couple questions, actually. So from your perspective, what are you seeing as maybe one of the most challenging or toughest issues you're seeing in the system there in Illinois these days? And then the second part of the question is, I want you to share what is the most rewarding part of your job, your role.
One of the tough things that I see is something that you talked about a little bit earlier, which is younger practitioners, but not just younger practitioners, also younger adjusters, younger claims professionals that are coming in. The methodology of what we do, how we do, why we do has changed so exponentially over the last few years. I said a few years ago that COVID pushed us 5 years ahead of where we would have been. We anticipated remote work here at the commission, where some of our staff would share space and so on, and be allowed to work from home certain days of the week. But we didn't expect it was going to happen all at once. And I look at the younger attorneys today, and they don't have the same opportunity for the give and take that I had, where you had 200 lawyers at one location where they would be discussing cases or walk over to their friend and say, I have this case, what do you think? And maybe it was somebody on the opposite side that they asked that question of. And the sad part is that's lost. We don't have that same degree of daily interaction with one another that we once had. We've changed our process so that our pretrials are done virtually. That's the downside of it, as I described. The upside of that is that we've moved more files in the past couple of years than in prior times.
Yeah.
Why? Because we force people to sit down and talk to an arbitrator, or at least talk to one another in advance of setting a trial date. In 2020, in February of 2020, 8,000 cases were actually set for trial in Illinois. 82 went to trial. Why?
Wow.
Because they hadn't talked to one another. They weren't ready to go. You know, that was the reality of it. So now we require that you have that pretrial, and then 30 days later, you get a trial date. And we did that because of a suggestion from the bar as well. The bar, members of the bar said, can you give us a little more time? Because we used to have our so-called call day, and we would set trials the next day. Well, they couldn't get the witnesses in. And I was the victim of that. I knew that drill. I also knew how to manage my way around it, but it created problems. So we now have a 30-day gap between the pretrial and the trial date. Everybody can get their witnesses, everybody can get their exhibits prepared, everybody can be ready to go. As I said, the sad part is the younger attorneys don't get to see all of that back and forth and develop all of those personal relationships that I was able to develop in my time in the system. I also tell the senior partners at all firms, whether it's petitioner or respondent, tell your staff, tell your attorneys that there's a telephone attached to this. Call one another and talk to one another.
You know, it's so fun. Rafael and I were just talking about this, that, you know, I personally, I'm going to give a little bit of my personal thoughts on life here. And those that know me know that this is the way I think. But I think everything's in the what you make of it, right? Like, yeah, you could, like you said, there are some setbacks in terms of how we used to do things. But you can also look at it as opportunity to do, you already said, like I just calculated, you're saying of all the things that are coming up for trial, only 1% actually go to trial. 1%.
Well, that was then.
Yeah.
It's different now?
It is different now because the cases are pre-tried and then they're set for trial.
Okay.
So the parties know we have to do something. The reality is it's led to more settlements.
Right.
Okay.
We settled over 30,000 cases last year.
That's amazing.
We had 34,500 new filings last year. Between trials, settlements, and dismissals for want of prosecution, we disposed of slightly more cases than were filed new.
Wow.
So we're keeping.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Well, what I was going to say is, you know, you can use your device in ways, I've got a screen, so it's hard to see, in ways that help you manage your life and your work that can be more positive. So yes, we don't get to see each other face to face as often as maybe we used to, but there still are ways to connect. And just because you're not seeing each other face to face, we have many more ways to connect and connect quickly and efficiently that I think if you use it in those ways, there are a lot of opportunity to do things more efficiently, better, and stay connected. People think they see me all the time, and I keep telling everybody I'm traveling less than I ever have. You're not really seeing me. You think you're seeing me, but you're
Right.
seeing me like this. So it does, like when you're seeing a person's face, it has the same effect and very similar benefits to seeing somebody in person. Now, nothing can replace a warm hug, particularly if it's from Rafael, but
True.
you get my point. I think there are a lot of options for us to connect, and I just think a lot of people don't use them in that way. So tell me what's the most rewarding thing about what you're doing at the commission?
For myself personally, this has been extremely rewarding because I have seen the evolution of something that I was very, very definite about changing when I came in. We were a paper-bound agency. And when I say paper-bound, I can't tell you how much paper we had. All of our documents were filed in paper, on paper. My goal, my number one goal coming in was to change the commission and turn it into a paperless system. And that was pursuant to our Illinois Supreme Court's directive. And my predecessor, who I very, very think very highly of, attempted that, was not able to do it. I came in March, and by, I believe, June, we were in the process of starting this paperless system. And we partnered with Microsoft, which we live in a Microsoft world. I'm sorry, Apple, but we do. And they are a state of Illinois approved vendor and so on. So it was an easy move for us. And by April of 2020, in the throes of COVID, very beginning of COVID, we went paperless for all of our settlements. And we got a great deal of resistance from the bar initially. You can't make us, we won't, and so on. And my reply was, we can, we will, and you will. And then I walked away from them and let them stew in it. By June of 2020, they were begging us to bring the rest of our system paperless. Wow. And by April of 21, we then went paperless with the rest of our system for our filings at the commission for the cases that were in dispute.
Yeah.
That was my number one goal. We accomplished it. Our self-insurance is paperless now. We receive payment electronically now, which we were getting paper checks. That's gone for the most part. So, all of these things have been improvements that I was very fortunate to be here when they occurred. And we have some great people that have put this stuff together. Personally, I have found this job to be extremely rewarding for the simple reason that we've been able to improve it a little bit. And my hope is by the time I walk out, it'll be a little better than we found it. And I've enjoyed it. I've just enjoyed my time. I've been very blessed.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
I've heard you speak of the volume of cases that the Illinois system handles and that your office handles. Give our listeners that are national in nature, please provide us with a little bit of those statistics and numbers, because we know Illinois, California, Illinois, New York, Texas, Florida, those are the big five. Those are the ones that everybody's paying attention to.
Right.
Share some of that with us, please.
Well, I'll share the following. When I started in workers' comp in 1985, I learned that the largest number of filings occurred in 1984. There were 92,000 cases filed in Illinois.
Wow.
Now, that was fingers and toes and things that we don't see anymore. We don't have the kinds of injuries that we once had in the manufacturing process, no matter what state we're in. We don't have the same volume. But claims declined over the years. And some of it is because of safety. We know that.
Yeah.
Some of it is for other reasons that we can't really explain, but I think the majority of states have seen a slowing of claims over the years. We have about 70,000 cases pending at all times. It's, I think, as high as 72 or 73,000, depending upon the year, and it's based upon the volume that we move. Last year, we had over 30,000 settlements, and most of our settlements, I won't say all because Rafael knows the Medicare set aside, Medicare payer portion of all of that. But most of our claims, we close future medical as well. On top of that, we have pushed trials. You want a trial, you'll get a trial. Anybody that tells you that they can never get a trial date in Illinois hasn't been here in 15 years, at least 5, we know that. Our decisions are extremely timely. Once the commission hears a case on review, which is our appeal, their decisions are out within 60 days. Our arbitrators' decisions are to be out in 90 days. And the logic behind the additional 30 is that in most instances, many instances, the attorneys order the record as they've concluded the trial so that they can write their proposed decision based upon the record. So it helps them and it helps the arbitrator.
Yeah.
They have 2 weeks to write their proposed decision after they get the transcript. And usually that takes 1 to 2 weeks. So now the arbitrator has 60 days to write a decision. If you think about it, we've already eliminated 4 weeks. We are at 27 weeks to last Friday with no late decisions from an arbitrator, which is a remarkable change for us, as we used to have difficulties with decisions coming out timely. We used to have delays and things like that. We don't tolerate it anymore. The problem that the arbitrators have is that we can track everything now. It's all electronic. It's all in our system. And I understand sometimes you get behind the 8 ball. You've tried 8 cases in a week. It's going to be tough to get those decisions out timely.
Sure.
But that is your problem too, in that you're not managing your docket correctly. Slow it down. Tell people maybe they need to settle that case, or maybe you just have a little more work to do this month. So it varies, but we've seen a lot of changes in that way, and I think for the better. Moving cases ahead, getting decisions out timely, it helps everyone. It helps both sides.
I think folks sometimes don't think about the significance that the workers' compensation system has in every single state. And as soon as they hear the numbers, like the numbers of claims, but even sometimes more significant, the dollars that we're talking about here, it really awakens folks to the reality of the major significance of workers' comp in each state.
As I tell, dependent upon the audience that I appear in front of, I tell them we are part of a $3 billion a year industry in Illinois. Yeah. Workers' compensation is a $3 billion industry in Illinois. We have a very large economy. A lot of people don't get that. I believe we're either 4th or 5th in the nation. We have a $1 trillion plus economy in Illinois. And if you were to say, what's the closest state in the Midwest, you'd be looking at Ohio with about an $850 billion economy. It's a big difference. So from an economic standpoint, workers' comp is a driver. And a lot of people like to treat you, and when you're involved in workers' comp, as a piñata and blame you for the shortcomings of the economy. I don't feel that's appropriate anymore. Once upon a time, we were the 3rd most expensive state in the country. I believe we're about 13 right now. And we should stay down in that area. But the other part of it is we have 360 companies writing workers' compensation insurance in Illinois. Why? It's profitable.
Yeah.
It's profitable. So there are all of these nuances or all of these variables that I get to see in this capacity, and that's what makes it fun. And it's fortunately for me been a lifetime of experience that's led to this. I had a very rewarding legal career. I'd been in the appellate court both in criminal and comp, and even when I was doing revenue. I actually had a case in 1979 involving whether or not the photographic arts exemption to the use tax applied to the photostep process in the manufacture of microcircuitry chips. When I prosecuted Medicaid fraud, I had a case involving medical records and whether or not they fell within the ambit of the Fifth Amendment. And that went to the U.S. Supreme Court on a petition for cert that was denied.
My
So I've
goodness.
had a great career. I've had a lot of fun in my career. And it's all blended into this where I'm at right now.
I love that. I love that. I really could continue this conversation on for hours, maybe even days.
I know you could, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it. So
Yeah, you're gonna tell me it's time.
no, we have one last question for you, and this is going to be fun. So we always like to conclude our episodes with finding out something that maybe most people don't know about you, or something we really like to know. What is it that you do in your spare time? You know, we work hard, as you said, in this industry. Most of us work super hard, and those of us that are passionate, even harder. What do you do to relax, let off steam, and just have some fun?
Well, the biggest fun thing that I do every year is I attempt to go to the Indianapolis 500 on race day. And I get to spend a day with 350,000 of my best friends at the largest sporting event in the world every year. And I have my tickets. There are now, today, I found out there will be an 11th person joining me this year. And we will, if all goes well, have a police escort into the track at 5:30 in the morning. And we'll be there for the day. It's great fun. I do go down there for qualifying as well, and been fortunate to have met a team owner and so on. So it's a lot of fun, and I have done it with my sons. My oldest is a huge fan, as I am. My youngest has kind of pulled away a little bit, but that's been one of my passions since I was, since 1964. That's when I saw my first race on TV.
Wow.
But I think you
father
shared.
asked me, why are you watching cars going around in a circle?
But I think you said in your notes when we were preparing that you have attended the Indy 500 since 1977.
Yes, I saw AJ Foyt win number 4 that year, and I've tried to go as often as I can since. Didn't make every one, but I've either gone to qualifying or the race as often as I can. And I've probably been to every race for the last 15, 18 years. And it's great fun. Yeah, most people think I'm crazy. That's fine.
I've never been to a one because wait a minute, what am I doing watching this thing go around?
What is the one, Ralph, what's the one that they do in St. Petersburg? Is that Formula One?
Yeah.
No, that's IndyCar.
It's IndyCar?
Yes.
I've been to this. So in St. Petersburg, near where we live in Tampa, I've been to several of those.
It's the Grand Prix.
Back in the day, I used to be a semi-professional water skier, and we actually used to perform a water ski show for the folks that would come over to watch the races. So
wow.
See, I learned something about her
We just
background
learned
today.
something. And did you enjoy the race?
I enjoyed the people and camaraderie. I can't say I so much. Ralph knows this about me. I don't really love loud noises. And I was going to say earlier, my mom used to take us to the races. So I'm in Texas right now near San Antonio. And in San Antonio, they have several military bases. And there's a racetrack nearby. And Mom would take us, me and my sister, on Friday nights to watch the races, and I did not like it. It was so loud. I would sit there like this, and after thinking about it, I'm thinking, I wonder what Mom's motive was for that. And I think it might have been she was divorced, from my dad. So I think maybe she was looking for an eligible person to maybe. I cannot imagine I don't think she was really a race car fan.
Well, she might have been a driver fan,
Maybe.
No, most people don't know that about me, but that's what I enjoy. And on the wall behind me are a couple of
I see
pieces of
that.
artwork that were gifts that are pretty interesting. So, and they involve the Indy 500.
That's awesome. How much fun.
Well, Chairman
remember
Brennan,
voice.
I don't know you. It's great to meet you. I look forward to meeting you in person, hopefully very
Thank you very
soon.
much.
But thank you, Rafael, for inviting him to join us. This has been a really lovely conversation.
What a great honor, really. What an amazing conversation. I always learn from you, Mr. Chairman. You are, I've always enjoyed stylistically and substantively what you bring to our table.
Wow.
So it really is. What a huge honor. What a great pleasure to do this with you.
Thank you very much. And as I tell my friends, my first name is still Mike. It's not Chairman. It's not my given name. But thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to wrap it there. What we always like to say at the end of every episode is hasta luego.
Hasta luego.